Welcome back, everybody, to the Sexy Business Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Spooky Dangerous, and join with me is Lewd Neko.
Hello.
And this time around, after we did a poll in the Patreon as to what games people would be interested to see us play and have a look at, we played Futa-fix, Dick, Dine, and Dash, possibly a tongue twister. And this was a game that I already had in my Steam library, which is why I was fine to go and do it. And it was one that I purchased ages ago because I wanted to go through and look at what other games were on Steam and do a bit of market research into how things were working, look at what the reviews say, see how the game goes, and see what we should be doing. I played it the first time when I bought it for about 5 minutes, wasn't that into it, and left it and had not opened it again. And then everyone voted for it, and I was like, well, we have to go back and play this game. And we both went and played this today and yesterday, and I was so right. I was so right to bounce off this. But we're going to go through a bit of it. We're going to talk a bit about what happened, what's going on, how we felt about the game. But actually, do you want to start us off with which routes that you went through? Because I played only Clover this time around.
Yeah, so I played Emily and Linda, and then I not Emily, Cindy.
Yep.
Emily's the main character. And then I kind of skimmed through a couple of the routes, like mashing kind of through text just to see CGs or quickly get a feel for some of the characters.
Yeah, I did that as well. We had a look at the galleries, and spoiler alert, there's an issue when they change the game and none of the animations work. So I went through and looked at some of the animations because I didn't experience them in the game. I didn't realize that they existed until we found out later on a RIP site that just happened to have them all preserved, I guess. But I made some notes through my playthrough, and I want to go through and give my completely brutal, unfiltered experience of playing just this one route, and then we'll talk about some of the other things, like some of the value the game does actually have and that kind of stuff afterwards.
Yeah.
And try
Should we
and
give
redeem.
sort of a brief summary or overview of what the game is for people who are like, I've never heard of this?
Yeah. Did you want to kick us off with that, and then I'll get into my unfiltered rant?
Yeah. So Futa-fix is a pretty basic visual novel. I guess you could call it a dating sim with a heavy emphasis more on the porn elements. It's by the developers Cyberframe Studios and Koopa Games. Cyberframe does a lot of hentai animations, is something I found out. So they have their own sort of subscription site where they have all sorts of animations and pinups and things like that. And it seems like Futa-fix is their first venture into actually trying to make their characters, into a game format. So you play as Emily, who is the kind of Futa who was not born a Futa. She woke up one day and suddenly had a dick. And now she's constantly horny and super embarrassed and ashamed that she has a pee-pee. And that's sort of her central character trait is she's always nervous about oh, the girls are going to judge me for having a penis. Or being horny. And you have a couple of different options of sort of characters to choose from. So you work at a diner, as the title would imply. So you have some of your coworkers, you have your boss, and then a couple of other extra characters. And I will say, I didn't get to this part in the story, but it seems like in some of the later routes or the secret routes, there is sort of a fantasy element. So there is a little bit of monster fucking
Yeah,
somewhere.
you're supposed to meet the character that did this to you. And spoiler alert, also did this to Clover. I obviously didn't play into that far, and I didn't find out who it was. But yeah, let's go through what my playthrough was like. I played Clover's route. I can't remember what I did the first time around. I think I just wandered. But the way the formatting kind of works is that you play through a prologue type thing, and then it literally opens up a menu, and it's like, okay, which character route would you like to play? So for us intending to play a specific route and want to do it separately so that we're not overlapping as much was really easy. For the average player, and just picking the character they care about and just playing their route also, I guess, is fine, but it feels weirdly rigid and robust, where it's just you're in a normal dating sim, you'll encounter a whole bunch of characters and you're trying to make choices that push you into a route, which is gameplay. This is just more like a hentai action selector where you're like, well, which is the character that you actually care about, and we'll ignore everyone else. And so rather than you navigating through everything, you are doing them. It's kind of like parallel rather than in sequence, right? Where you're like, okay, I'm going to complete this one in its entirety, and then I'm going to complete this one in its entirety, and there's no overlap.
Yeah.
So I can see the upside to it, but for me, it kind of makes the storytelling awkward and unimmersive. But
Yeah, I think a lot of our complaints are maybe going to be minority complaints,
yeah,
or
for
like,
sure.
we have very similar sort of desires and play styles when it comes to visual novels. I'll just like I'll sort of say this as a positive. If you are looking for a game that is just like sex and a bunch of different characters and more sex and
It's very to
on the versions of
business.
the game that works, animations and stuff like that, then you will enjoy this game because it is very minimal when it comes to choices, and the dialogue is pretty minimal or pretty easy to like skip through. So if you just want to watch some Futa action, you'll probably actually really enjoy this game.
Yeah. It is very no nonsense when it comes to actually progressing through. Normally, in like a classic Renpai game, you would have several dialogue options to choose from when navigating with the characters. In the route that I played, you only ever have the same two options, and it's either please keep going or stop touching me. And it feels like a trick question every single time because I'm always going to pick the same thing every single time, which was a bit weird. One of the other things that I found very strange is there's loading screens in a what I assumed to be a Rempire game, which is not a thing that's really required. The engine doesn't actually have so many assets that it needs to load and has problems with that to have to stop and have a loading screen. And there was a scenario in which I'm very clearly at a location. Something happens, and then the loading screen pops up, which I assume is to just be there to indicate that time is passing in the scene or whatever. But then when it loads back, we're in the wrong location. Like it's loaded the wrong background, and then the main character is just having dialogue. And then it loads the next scene where it actually fixes and comes back to where we're supposed to be. I'm talking to the right person. So I don't know what has happened there, but that was like super immersion breaking because I'm looking at it going, this is clearly a mistake that they've happened. But the format of each round is broken up into a few different segments, and all of the segments are kind of identical. Where it's like you'll have a conversation, and that will set up what the scene's going to be. It's like, oh, we're talking about this thing, or I'm interested in this thing. This is what's going to happen. And then there is the sex scene, which is exactly the thing you just discussed. And it just that kind of repeats as a block several times. So in the Clover round, it's like, hey, you know what? You should come and do yoga with me. And you're like, okay. And then you do yoga and then you fuck. And then Clover goes, hey, do you want to watch a movie with me? And you go, okay. And then you watch a movie and then you fuck. And it's like really exactly the same every single time. Um, I think it's the last scene in the Clover round, which was the strangest one to me, where Clover's like, I've invited people over for group sex. And you're like, oh, I'm scared, awkward, okay. The third character shows up and doesn't have a character model to talk. And
Oh.
in the dialogue, is just listed as unknown. And they have a lot of dialogue, but you never see or hear anything about them. And then they fuck, and that's the first time when you see the character, which was like really
That's
weird.
really interesting because
Yeah,
that happens in Cindy's route too. It also ends with a threesome with a sort of nameless person.
yeah. So it was like they had a sex scene drawn, but they just didn't decide to make a character that could talk or stand or even have like because they have little talking icons in the bottom left when someone's delivering dialogue. Not even that person's not even named. Is kind of a huge failure in the storytelling. I think that was really weird for me. Um, what else? I'm
Yeah,
reading
Cindy's
through my
route is
notes.
like virtually the same. So Cindy's kind of like the party girl. She's like flirty and extroverted and whatever. So you go to the club with her because she's like, you need to get out more, and then she gets tipsy, and you have the option to be like, I have a dick, and she's like, cool, let me give you head in the bathroom, and then she forgets about that because she was like half drunk, and then you look at dresses with her for the next day because she wants you to up your style. And then
Hmm.
she gets horny in the, dressing room. And I think she just gives you head again or gives you a handy or something like that. And is like, cool, I love that you have a cock. And Emily's like, great, I'm cool with this now. Um, and
Yeah.
then you meet with her. I think you have sex with her twice. Like you meet with her and get dressed up, and I think you have sex with her again, and then you have the threesome at like a party at the very end. But yeah, the choices are all exactly the same, where basically your options are like she'll be like, I want to have sex with you, and Emily can either be like, awesome, or be like, no, I'm too shy.
Hmm. Yeah, which I mean feels kind of the same.
Just
Another
give a
thing
different
that
character type.
yeah, but like same kind of format. One of the other things that I thought was a bit strange is it's really a very specific anime hentai art style that feels a little bit dated at this point. But like it does that style well for like what that category is, even though it might not be my preference. But the thing that I think is extra strange about that is that everyone's weirdly sweaty and drooling all of the time, which is very weird. And like, look, I understand if they've just done yoga and then had sex that they would be sweaty. But then if they were watching a film and were for the most part stationary and like there's no foreplay in this game, by the way. It's just like none. And so going directly to penetrative sex and already being incredibly sweaty kind of indicates a glandular problem that these people have not been confirmed to have. However, there was one piece of writing that I actually really did like in Clover's route. Um, Twice. So first you do yoga and Clover puts on a CD, which is like a I don't know Zumba type shit, right? And the main character goes, "That's weird. Who fucking uses a CD anymore?" And then you watch a movie together, and she puts in a DVD, and the main character's like, "Man, that's weird. Who fucking uses a DVD anymore?" And then she comes over to your house, and the main character is like, "Oh, Clover confesses to also being magically turned into a Futa character, and they both have problems jerking their shit constantly, and they watch a lot of porn and stuff like that." And then Emily is like, "Hey, this is what I've been doing. I've been playing porn games." And Clover's like, "What is that? I've never heard of that before. I don't really like computers." And I'm like, "Wow, that like actually had a payoff. This random fucking character trait that they gave her that had nothing to do with before, and I was really dismissive of, suddenly had a huge payoff, and it gave the main character an excuse to introduce her to porn games." I thought that was really good, and I thought everything else was really cringe. The main character says meat dragon way too many times.
Yeah, I'd say like the most annoying part of the dialogue or like storytelling for me is the main character because they really do have one trait, which is like, I'm so nervous about my pee
Yeah.
pee. And that's just like sort of their motivation for everything they do. Which like when you're playing through like I think there's like 6 or 7 routes in this game and you have to go through that same goddamn character arc with this
Yeah.
character every single time. I mean, it pisses me off the same way that like the pussy ass main characters in a lot of dating sims do, where they're always like, oh, I don't think this girl likes me, even though she's like head over heels, like literally like tripping over herself to like suck his dick.
Yeah.
It has that same feeling of like, come on, get over it.
I don't know that she likes me, but she literally barks when I whistle. Yeah.
I will say though, I didn't notice the characters being super sweaty when I played. So I don't know if that's just
Oh,
like maybe
maybe it's
certain
just a
routes
Clover
are.
thing.
Yeah, because I will say they are very shiny, which is like to
Yeah.
me like that 2010s anime style where they're all just like oiled up 24/7. But I didn't notice like like sweat or drool that was too crazy. The only thing I didn't like or like I didn't like how it was presented was the cum. Not that I have problems with like, ridiculous cum shots or anything. I just didn't think it looked good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. My also other main criticism is that none of the characters have balls. Futa characters without balls look really weird to me, and it is also because it is that classic hentai style that was kind of what Futa was like at the time. It was like really
Hmm.
uncommon to like actually be fully equipped,
Yeah, I
um,
feel like balls would have been seen as like more gay, I
or
guess.
harder to animate, maybe.
And
So
it would
I
have
don't
like
know.
covered up the pussy too. So that's why like I kind of understand it. Like, because especially with like the stuff between Clover and Emily, I feel like they want to highlight like, oh, we're actually using the pussy on the Futa.
Yeah, that is
So
true.
maybe the balls would have gotten in the way.
That is true. But yeah, and then the way that the game is formatted, it is basically because the prologue is like, hey, here's the quick introduction of each of the characters you're going to get to choose from the first round, and here is the activity that they wish to be doing. It doesn't really tell you that much about them or what you can expect from their route. And then it basically opens up to a menu which is like, all right, pick one of them. But some of them are grayed out, and then once you complete routes, then you can go and do the grayed out ones. So upon completing Clover, I unlocked one new one. I think there was two or like one more after that was still locked, which does make for like a really easy navigation through each line. Like if you genuinely just want to play the game with your dick in one hand and your other hand on the spacebar, it's pretty possible. Which like as much as I did not find this game to my taste, it being able to do that and me having played other games that did not allow you to do that, I think is kind of insane. Like one of my criticisms about Futadom World is that they make you play DDR in it, and I'm like, homie, unless if I'm doing DDR on my own clip, this shit isn't happening for me.
No, yeah, I definitely think this is a great sort of like plug and fap kind of game
Yeah.
where you can just sort of jump in and pick whatever character suits your fetishes and have fun with the four-ish like animated scenes you get, although that's where the problem comes in.
Mm.
So this game has a bit of I guess, a history where it's not in RenP. It looks like it's a RenP game, and you would expect most pornographic visual novels to be RenP, because why wouldn't it be? Or RenPy, sorry. And this one was originally made in Game Maker, which apparently had a lot of critical issues that was causing some people to like basically not be able to play the game, and they weren't able to fix it in that engine. Like it was something wrong with the engine itself. So they ended up having to change engines. They changed to Godot, and it fixed some issues and then created a bunch of new ones. So one of them is that the gallery just doesn't work, which is really disappointing to me. I love filling up the gallery when I play games like this because I can see my progress, and also I can go back to scenes I like easily. Isn't that what we all want? And so not having a working gallery is kind of criminal to me.
Mm. Yeah, especially when a visual novel is, especially a visual novel like this, which is like 60 lines of dialogue, one image, one animated scene, and then you're like, um, usually when you're playing this, you're like, I played through the thing, I get the story, I still haven't come yet. I just want to go and do like a quick greatest hits and cycle through them so that I can just kind of get there. And it's like, do I really want to play through a whole route and skip and skip and skip and hope that I don't accidentally skip the actual scenes, or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it makes it really awkward. One of the best parts about Futadom World is because it's such a big game and the routes are like actually really long, that you can go, oh, I like this one particular part of it. Like there's a particular Mallory scene that I really like when you're just kind of hanging out in her room and she's only wearing a sweater. So I could go there, and then I could go, oh, but what about this other thing from this other scene? And you're like, okay, and you can kind of jump around a bit. Like it allows you to navigate to your favorite bits. And for that reason, I think it's like really crucial, instead of like locking you into, even though it's short, having to kind of grind through all of the different things.
Yeah, it's sometimes you just want to have like your own custom experience. It's like making a playlist, you know? Like I want to
Spotify
start with like
Wrapped.
the cute stuff, and then I want to get to like the animated scenes. That's like one of the biggest disappointment is like not being able to easily access all the animated scenes when in a
Mm.
gallery. And then the other issue, speaking of animated, is some of the animated scenes just don't work anymore. I didn't experience this when I played, so maybe I got lucky, or maybe it was because I had old saves. Like I don't know if that would do anything. But yeah, some of the animated scenes just show up as CGs now. So a major feature is possibly broken. So if you do end up purchasing this game, I would probably recommend fucking around with it and seeing if the animations work, especially if that's a big buying factor for you. Like
Hmm.
this would be one case where I'd say a refund is like totally justified because that is just such a critical failure for a game that's advertising itself on look at our animated scenes.
Yeah, even if you like looked at it mathematically, right? And you go, okay, they've got 3 animated scenes per character out, and each of them is, let's just say, 24 frames to make it really easy, right? And then if none of the animations work and all of them are 1 frame, then the percentage of actual art unique frames that you see in the entire game is less than 10%. So 90% of the game is gone. Like, what? So yeah, I understand if a refund would be justified. For me, I've only actually refunded one game, and that's because I was made really frustrated by the experience of playing it. So this one I just kept around. A lot of the times, I really enjoy going through and looking at the dev notes when they do the little devlog update of games and stuff like that. Like, I bought Subverse and I played it through to wherever the end was at the time. And then now every month I just go and look at what the devlog is like. Oh, what have they changed? Oh, all they've done is added animations this time. There's no point for me to go and come back and play it just yet, you know. And so with stuff like
Mhm.
this, I'm like, will they? Won't they? Will they finally get back the band together again and fix the fucking game so that I want to come back and look at it, or what's gonna happen? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's been abandoned. That's kind of the feeling that I've been getting. And they just kind of did like an emergency thing to get it onto the new engine. It didn't really work, and they're like, "Well, fuck. I guess I don't know what to do now," because it feels like all of their attention is on this new project called Vagrant, which is, I would say, their main thing now by the looks of things.
Yeah, I will say in the patch notes from last year about like at the very December 2023, it does say they have plan for a new route in 2024 for Futa-fix. So maybe,
Running out of
December
time.
2024
Yeah, cutting it
they'll push
close.
a fix and add a character. Who knows if that'll actually come true or
We'll
not.
finally get the
Um
fix in Futa-fix.
Yeah, because Vagrant launched in May, so maybe they were focusing on it during sort of the spring and summer, and now they're just spending a little bit of time on Food-a-Fix, but they're also pitching Chapter 2 for Vagrant. So I have no idea what their workflow is like.
Yeah, my hunch in general was they started off with like the drawing, the comics, the anime kind of stuff, and they're like, let's try and make a game. They made Foodifix as like a proof of concept thing. Um, in board games, I often refer to this as like a business card game, where it's like, this is the thing that people will know me for. This was my proof of concept. This is the thing that I did to prove to myself that I can do this job. I can make these things. And then like they get to go through all the publishing and they get to do all that kind of stuff and builds a little bit of a reputation usually for being good at the job. I don't know if that's worked here. And then after that, they go, well, remember this thing that I did? It might not have been perfect. It was my first thing. Now I'm committing. I know I can do this. We're going to go big. Here's all the exciting stuff that we have planned. We've seen the same with Benefits Ship, right? Benefits Ship was the first
Mhm.
game. It was short, but there's a lot of things they did good. And then now they're expanding to a much bigger game. There's lots of monster fucking. There's heaps more characters. There's a lot. There's already more text in the game than Benefits Ship. The game's not even launched yet. So I think it's the same thing. They've done this as a proof of concept. Like, okay, with Vagrant, we're going big. We're bringing in everything, and it already kind of looks like that. Like they have. We watched some of the preview content that they have available, and there's a scene of one of the characters just running down a hallway. And I'm like, that would never fucking be in Futa-fix, Dick, Dine, and Dash. There's no way that they would have a full page animation of something that is not sex in this game. And that kind of tells me that their
Yeah.
attention to detail is there and not here.
Yeah, and I looked over some of like the development notes and the Twitter and stuff like that, and like they have a lore page that they're making, like a sort of codex of like definitions for like races and areas and things like that. So I can already tell, like, I don't know who the writer is for this one, but like this is their passion project, like they
Yeah.
are really invested in this world and the characters and actually making sort of an interesting story. Whereas Foodafix is definitely mostly just like, we have a couple of chirpy characters and some cute stuff
This
and
one has a
mostly you're
dick.
just here. Yeah, like that's really the biggest difference is how the characters look.
Yeah.
And definitely, this game looks a lot better. It's like almost like an interactive hentai is how it reads to me, where like it is mostly animated. It has a ton more voice acting. It has very like hentai-like elements with how it seems to be paced and like some of the dialogue where it's got some comedic bits, but it's also got like enough sort of drama and storyline to keep you engaged. And then a lot more diversity since it's a fantasy genre when it comes to the character design. So you have, your typical big titty blonde elf. You've got like some sort of like lizard looking girl. You've got your cat girls. Your regular human characters too. So there's a lot more variety when it comes to this one.
Mm. Whether or not I will be sold will be based on the number of times they say meat dragon.
I mean, I guess you don't have a protagonist who's constantly like worried about it because it seems like there's a lot more Futa characters in this one, so it's probably just like, it's a fantasy world. A dick is
Yeah,
like the most
I
normal
had a
thing on a
look.
girl.
I had a look. They've got a thing on their main page, which is like the list of fetishes, and it was like threesomes, MILF, feet, Fuda. I think was all of the non-vanilla ones, and I'm like, okay, that I guess giving a character a dick is slightly more. Because in theory, they have like no masculine characters at all. Like Futa-fix Dick Dine Dash has no masculine characters; it only has feminine characters. So, and I'm
Mhm.
assuming Vagrum is similar. I don't remember actually seeing any masculine characters. So
No,
them
it's
being
all
like,
female in
well,
Futa.
they have a dick, is just mean that they never have to draw a man, I guess. Because fellas, why are you as a man drawing a man? Like, but look, that is once again another, let's say, fantastic episode of the Sexy Business Podcast. I really do enjoy coming in and having a look at a game and getting some understanding of what happened with the developers, kind of what their goals were, what happened with putting everything together. Did the game work out? Did we enjoy playing it? Kind of what does the community think about this kind of thing? Because learning about this kind of stuff is going to hopefully help me learn to do a better job when it comes to a lot of these different kinds of things. It is tough to keep one of these studios running, and there's a lot of people and things and goals and stuff that you have to juggle all of the time. So it is interesting to see what happened here. Obviously, with their engine problems, feels like a major stick in the bike spokes when it comes to putting it all together. And whether or not they're choosing to recover or if they're abandoning and moving on to something else could be trading off reputation on a failed project for delivering a higher quality project later. And sometimes you have to make these tough decisions. And this is the kind of stuff that we like to look at and think about when it comes to the Sexy Business Podcast, because ultimately, even though it is a sexy business, it's still a business, and we do have to think about how we're going to build all of these different things so that we can continue to operate, continue to deliver the sexo content that you enjoy seeing and cranking your shit to. Now, if you have listened this far into the video, that means I demand upon you that you click the like button, you click the subscribe button. You are indebted to us for this fantastic information that we have delivered to you. And the trade deal that you have willfully accepted by clicking the play button is that you click the other buttons for us. That was the bargain. You've signed the contract, and now you are locked in, and you have to ring the bell for the notifications. Otherwise, our resident happy cat is going to have her bell ring, but in a sad way, because she'll be frowning so hard. So you have to you have to help us keep a happy cat so we can come back and we can deliver more exciting things when it comes to living and working in the sexy business. And hopefully we'll see you next week.
Bye bye.